you can always ask me later. I'm going to be totally fine with that.
Yeah, it's just we're just doing it because sometimes we missed some details when we were having a series of a lot of calls. We were missing some details, and at a certain point, it was a little bit embarrassing to
No,
write it. You
understandable.
know, there was one person taking the notes, and she missed a lot of notes, and it was a bit
Okay.
embarrassing to write to people. And I was
That's
thinking, okay,
all
let's
good.
avoid it. Let's just record the calls. So just a little bit of update of what we were, what we were doing and what is the project evolving into. So
Yeah,
as
definitely.
yeah, as you might remember, it's been a long time, and we're a venture capital services firm. We work with different entities, and what we're in this case doing is trying to map the world of 3D-4D printing, high-end 3D-4D printing, to
Mhm.
find the key applications, the key, let's say, areas of technology from kind of a little bit a vision point of view, understanding where is this going. Leaders like to know, and investors, especially strategic investors, like to know if they're not missing anything. There's a point of breadth, of making sure they understand where the technology, where the world is going to. And we're now evolving into a point of not so much a completeness or breadth of understanding. We're evolving more into a point of depth, of saying, out of this mapping this world, where do we find for our firm and for our strategic investors areas that we believe could be of higher return on investment, shorter term return on investment. Obviously, trying to, in the end, what normally happens is governments or research institutions fund research to 10 years into the horizon. Investors are trying to map shorter term returns. We are more in a strategic, longer approach for an investment, kind of our investment approach. However, companies, especially the strategic investors, want to always understand within their own portfolio this kind of areas, what would be the application. And we've kind of mapped certain technologies. We've debated which we've started to filter down which ones we thought have higher impact. And
Uh-huh.
then we've tried to filter down not only impact, but also not short-termness, because it's not short-termness, but applicability. Where do we see something having an application more on the shorter term or the shortest horizon possible? That would be
Uh-huh.
a more adequate term. And we found applications, we found experts, and we found companies. And we're trying to connect, because in this process, we've seen one thing that was very clear. There's a lot of hidden potential. There's a lot of research that happens in labs, that happens in research institutions, which doesn't get the visibility. For example, your FlexiLab webpage is a great example of actually doing a great task, exposing what the technology can do. But still, it's a little bit like the MIT self-assembly lab. We still feel that it hasn't been able to build a bridge for business,
Yeah, you're
business managers
right.
who talk dollars. In the end, they talk dollars. They talk,
Yeah.
impact in their business. What can I do with this tomorrow? I have a job. I want to keep this job the next 3 years. They're not visionaries. They're managers of existing businesses. They want to have an impact. So we've seen in parallel that we're working on the process of building this kind of platform to map. There's always an effort of mapping more from a business sense. In our case, we want to link applications or technologies to business, and then trying to develop. This is the next stage where we're at, where we're trying to work with certain partners in developing certain applications. Why? Because this is the advantages we have. We talk to the strategic investors, in this case, automotive manufacturers, and we've built with them an understanding of. We guide them in the process, and we say, look, we find that this could be an area of application. They identify also internally what will they be capable of actually making happen. And we've determined certain areas. For example, very clearly, anything that is close to the engine is off limits. Anything that is related to that is just it's too far away. Their engineering is too optimal, and they're moving to other areas. Anyways, electrical vehicles are their preoccupation at this point. But we've seen certain areas, and for example, we did see the steering wheel and the seat as areas that they're very focused, because they say, okay, that is an area where in their vision of what the car of the future has to be. The car of the future, and broad, very simplistic vision, but it will be a group of people that will still be like the Audi experience or the BMW experience or the Mercedes experience. They'll want their combustion engine, the most efficient, less energy intensive combustion engine, but they will want still that experience. That will be the top tier. Electrical vehicle will start to absorb a large part, but then the life in the car, especially with self-driving vehicles, that presence, the comfort in the car is a great differentiator. There will be a digital comfort and there will be a physical comfort. And they see that the steering wheel, in the case of the drivers who will still drive, and the seats for other passengers are areas of clear value of customization, clear angle where they can differentiate without playing with core, functionalities of the car. And they want us to explore. We've seen that there's an alignment here. Here is where your research or research from other, obviously there's different areas of research and actually a couple companies that we can connect them, and we can ideally, what we're trying to do now is, the challenge with all this is that what we've seen, for example, just an example, little example. We were talking to another researcher some days ago, and basically typical research, very focused on the problem you're trying to solve. He told me like, oh well, what I need to really reach a certain point of development in this application is 3 years, 5 engineers, a new research center, blah, blah. And I did a fast calculation and said, look, this is $4.5 million. $4.5 million. You're going to go to an investor and say, give me 3 years, $4.5 million, and I don't know what the outcome is going to be. And I said, look, and this doesn't work because the outcome needs to be clear as much as possible. Time needs to be reduced in some way, and cost needs to be aligned. And what we're working on is trying to break that 4.5 million, break those 3 years into smaller phases, where ideally what we will develop, this is the next stage of this, what we will develop with certain partners, is a breakdown of that vision of 3 years into smaller parts that strategic investors can say, okay, let me put $200,000, or let me put a certain amount of money. So I test this idea. Oh, wow. Okay. This is what I wanted to see. Okay. Next gate. This is a lot like corporations operate by gates, where, yeah. So this is what we're trying to enable. And this is why we want to have a second conversation, because we did clearly in the team here work as part of a larger team, but they're especially the specialist on your area of focus. And we wanted to investigate a little bit more, understand a little bit more, and they'll ask you more detailed questions to kind of tick the boxes, understand a little bit better where the applications can be. And then what we would want to discuss is, obviously, if there's a line of collaboration, if there's a line that you would be interested, just for you to give me guidance. That would be a little bit more my as program manager, my role, to understand what is your constraints, your needs, and all this, so we can actually try to enable this or enable our next stage in this. I'm sorry, because I talked for a long time.
Martin, so just allow me to interrupt very briefly here. So, well, as you know, like my field is material science, and I do a lot of what are called programmable materials. So basically, materials that you 3D print with the idea in mind of how they are going to be formulated in an active way or in a passive way when they interact with the user. So um, my question over here is like, do they want, so when dealing with comfort, for example, and in the environment of like the inside of a car, And this could be like any sort of like aviation cabin or any sort of like I mean for any sort of vehicle. So I would say that I mean comfort is perceived. So comfort is perceived in two channels. Like for example, I feel like if I am hot in my car, I will just put the AC and I will do it actively. So, but it is also perceived like indirectly whenever like like my cousin is actually like soft and like and things are actually designed in a way that I feel comfortable even if I'm driving for long hours. So is it a combination of something that will automatically tune, but also like you so that is the concept of the human in the loop.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically that is a very hot topic now, like scientifically speaking. So the idea is that like you're gonna have a system. Your system is going to be programmed to do a certain activity, but if there is any human that wants this activity to change for whatever reason, the system will give preference to the parameters input by the user and adapt to those. Okay, so for example, like you can find those in like in ultrasound imaging, for example. Like now there are like well, the problem with ultrasound imaging is that like if you and I are doctors, depending on our skills, we will be with the same machine and the same patient taking different images because the system is it basically it has way too many parameters. So, I mean, if we want to ensure that we are actually getting the most out of the system, ideally we should be able to optimize and I should be able to get an image as good as the one that you're getting. So
Yeah.
that's why like now, like these systems are built in a way that they automatically ignore the user, trying to optimize which ones are going to be the best parameters to optimize the image. Okay. Of course, if I just feel like the tissue that I'm using is somehow if I know the properties and I know like okay these parameters I just don't want them, I want these ones for whatever reason, like the machine will believe me and do whatever I want. So I think the concept of comfort is actually gonna be perceived in a way uh, in a much better way if we just like keep this concept of the human in the loop. And we need to think of something that will be passive, that will, in my opinion, learn from the interaction with the user. And that's why, like at the lab, we do a lot of machine learning now. And and the other thing important, in my opinion, is that like at any moment the user might have a knob or a way to maybe orally speaking request for some parameter to change, and then the system will accordingly comply. So that is so there is another extra that, in my opinion, will help you greatly to convince investors, and it's the fact that like comfort, especially in a car, is perceived as something nice but not critical. But if you combine comfort with safety, if you make the point that like what you're using or making is now making the car more efficient or safer for whoever is riding it, I think there will be a strong point over there. So, for example, in the old times, all these Ford models and actually the many cars, especially in Spain at the beginning of I would say, until the beginning of the 90s, all the steering wheel was directly connected with so if this is the steering wheel, there was a rod that was a physical connection with the front wheels, and this rod was just like a mechanical rod. So that's why like many people involved in car accidents broke their severely their ribs when they actually get to crash their car against an obstacle, because like whenever they were falling on top of the steering wheel, like they were just like receiving the whole deformation of the impact, because this section of the steering wheel was actually a rigid component. So now steering wheels are actually like the transmission to the wheels is broken in the middle. So this thing will snap in case there is an accident. So my point is, there are many ways in which we can like print metamaterials, especially like let's imagine that you are only interested in the steering wheel. Um, there are many ways in which we can make the case that it will be safer from the point of view of, for example, releasing the airbag in a more homogeneous way. Okay, like rather than appearing just from the center of the steering wheel as it is happening now, like we could actually make the airbag infuse through the steering wheel, as it would be the case, like if it was kind of like a self-releasing foam, let's say.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, we will be able to tune basically to tune uh, the the hardness, the stiff,
Yeah.
actually is the John modulus, is the stiffness of the wheel, for example, to make the user hold the steering wheel for longer time. So you know, like this happens a lot. Like I have the example in my father. While you are supposed to hold your steering wheel at like we say like well this position, like it's actually 10-1 in the positions of the clock. Okay, after you have been like this for 2 hours or so, and that starts to first forget this hand, okay, and then start putting this hand on the bottom of the steering wheel, which is just comfortable for him, but it will be fairly bad if there is any sort of pedestrian that crosses the street and needs to do like any sort of fast turning because he will just have the control to really enable that maneuverability. So I think those are terrains that definitely be explored. And so now my question will be a little bit about like how do you want this 4D printing concept? So the other thing about 4D printing, especially at the States, is that it will provide way lighter solutions, especially if they are architected, than anything that is right now inside the current. So if you are talking about like so I think this is especially critical for the duration of the batteries in electric cars. So there are two options for to make the batteries last longer. One is making better batteries. The other one, much simpler, reduce reduce the weight. So if you're carrying less weight, like the battery will last way longer. So we could maybe think of a way in which we can reduce significantly the interior, I mean the weight of the interior of the car. So just by making it architected and still like, and actually even like provided with a very cool design, which will be actually quite easy to do. So okay, so again, what is the if you would like to put all the heat somewhere where that, I mean, what would be that somewhere?
Currently, we're can you hear me correctly? I'm
Yes, perfectly well.
okay. Currently, the area where we're more focused or we've identified as the stronger areas, especially by in discussion with the automotive manufacturers, especially with one of them, is on the steering wheel. Clearly, the steering wheel is the let's say the driver is still the key person to. If you look at the equation of which is the key customer and the car is still the driver, and which is the area of most physical impact and contact, as you mentioned, the most. And where the value of personalization, and as you said, also of applying machine learning in terms of options would be clearly on the steering wheel because any value in the customization will be felt physically by the driver. The most the if you look at the share of mind or time of impact, the steering wheel will be that. In terms of the stiffness adaptation, in terms of directly just using 3D printing and having a steering wheel that adapts to the driver, that truly if you were to choose, obviously, when you're mass manufacturing vehicles, you precisely Ford basically when he built his system, it was all about drivers Customers can ask for whatever they want as long as it's a black car. Well, that was the joke, and kind of like everything exactly, has to be scaled. And here, if you look at which area will be the highest value, highest emotional impact, highest, let's say, loyalty creator, the steering wheel will be that. At the same time, as you were mentioning before, about machine learning, where could there be areas of machine learning? And we're learning, for example, of examples related to gaming industry, where, for example, some companies are customizing the mouses using 3D printing. Now they're trying to use machine learning to learn the behavior of the player, and actually in connection with the game in terms of emotional response. So trying to create more um, a stickier game, but also in terms of creating value, for example, for parents or for other entities, for example, and that would be on the security area of understanding when a driver, for example, or when a player is going into a little bit of a frenzy and you want to calm him down, or the game or the car should be able to understand that there's a tension, an additional tension. So clearly it seems like the steering wheel is the area that has, if you had to heat map the car and where there could be value, the steering wheel is where
Yeah,
we
the way
see
to
the
go.
highest at this point.
Mhm. So ideally, you're even thinking of having a prototype of this steering wheel that will kind of like motivate the investors to basically grant you the money.
Yeah, and that's always key. It's a little bit the people need. I'm pretty good, for example, or some of our team are pretty good on PowerPoint and
I
creating kind
understand. I understand. I mean, as you said, the outcome needs to be clear.
of.
So,
But the physical element of seeing samples, so we're trying to slow down the strategic investors and tell them, like, look, this is really cutting edge area. This is our real, it's not that easy to generate this kind of situations. But yes, eventually, to get an investment, we'll have to be able to prototype at least an initial version of this and demonstrate how this will be built in the future. It has to be just a simple prototype. They understand that this is not an industry where you can actually do a prototype that you'll be ramping up in production 6 months later. But nothing like the physical element or the prototype to prove the point.
mhm. Okay. So, and now what is, now that you, let's say, have a mission, and this mission is improving the steering wheel, um, at, at what point, so again, like the order here is you need to first get the money in order to get us probably, like, I don't know, let's say my group and other groups to work on different aspects of this steering wheel. So, um, yeah. So right now, let's say that like basically what you need is to somehow figure out what is gonna be the key thing to promise or to get or to like rapidly prototype. So it is basically about the IP. So this the intellectual property is what you want to develop.
Yes. Um, and ideally, what we want is, so just to it's not only having, for example, in the end, is collaborating with someone who has the IP, because in the end, what we've seen is there always needs to be a capacity to scale, a capacity to. Normally, research institutions are very good at developing technology, but not so good at then developing a product after that.
I
Uh,
understand.
and we normally try to involve, depends on the sector. For example, in Taiwan, we're working with a couple of companies and we're involving a contract manufacturer in the discussions, a contract manufacturer with knowledge of 3D printing. Because what we want to make sure is that we don't miss out on a key barrier for productization in the future. Because this is a typical thing that happens where a technology is built in the lab for the lab, or for kind of thinking of this, and then when it tries to scale, it has a lot of issues built in, and it's harder. So this is what we try to do. We try to put different layers of partnership when we present, especially to investors, because that really reassures them that, okay, we've seen a lot of things that look very good in the lab, but then are impossible to execute. They have their own engineering, but normally, especially with the OEMs, normally you convince the investors, and the investors then have to convince their work as internal client with their own internal clients, which are the larger R&D groups, or the larger product groups within the same group, because they, in the end, they're in inner they're providing for them. So it's a little bit of a challenge. So we try to map up a little bit the steps of the process to make sure that we can control that.
Okay, so Mark, I can tell you like the things that we will be able to do, like for this enterprise that you're actually like putting together. So, well, you know that my lab does a lot of like simulations. So that means like mechanical simulations. That's something that without any problem we can do. And it doesn't matter how complex the structure is. Okay, it might be more like computer intensive, but we have actually modules at the supercomputing center that we have located at Purdue. So that should be, we will be able to model and make like nice simulations about, for this magic PowerPoint that you will be using. So simulations about how like the steering wheel will deform, how maybe the steering wheel will deform after driving time, so that it is even more comfortable and forces, maybe not forces, but kind of like invites the driver to keep the hands on the right position. So so his driving is, or their driving is actually safer. And so simulations will not be an issue. Then we have 3D printers, so, and we can totally have the capability of printing something the size of a steering wheel. So that is, yeah, with fairly good resolution. So that will be another thing that will not, I mean, that will be easy for us. And one of the courses that I teach actually is on design. So so the design, the architecture, the how to actually, meaning like if you tell me how you want the steering wheel to deform, okay, and I assume that this deformation is not going to be, it's going to be like more in some areas, like the areas where you're going to be holding it, those will deform a little more, and there will be a point where they will not deform anymore.
Yes.
So those things are actually going to, so we can work out the design. We have like plenty of algorithms that will perform different tessellations in order to get you whatever is the uh, like the stiffness that you want to apply to the whole structure. And okay, so we have like the design tools, the simulation tools, and what else I was gonna tell you? So, oh yes, and now one of the things that I do is like, so I'm in industrial engineering because I make a scalable manufacturing, new scalable manufacturing techniques or products. And the other thing that the other department I work with at Purdue, and I have a joint appointment with that one, is biomedical engineering, because I also make bioinstrumentation. So uh, and one of the things that my group does is kind of like another branch that we have is actually how bioinstrumentation can be more aware of who is the user and then vary parameters accordingly. So we use for that what is called like convoluted neural networks. So this is a kind of machine learning. So usually machine learning, the one you are used to, or is the one that, like, for example, that Google uses. So Google is actually taking all these, he has an algorithm that is like in the moment you start typing some stuff, it's a classification problem. So it's kind of like you're like searching for like pictures of cats. And then like, well, this algorithm is kind of like identifying what has a cat inside and will provide you with those images, and actually provide you with those images according to the number of visits that they get. But but the system is passive. I mean, meaning like it has been trained before on what a CAD is, and that's basically all.
Yeah.
So the issue with a person driving a car is that, for example, the steering wheel might not be even be in the same position. Like meaning, like like in England, they just like put the steering wheel on the other side. So
Yeah.
you need to have a system that is actually capable of understanding that it will be having different users and different situations.
Yeah.
So also the steering wheel is not, you are not holding and maneuvering the steering wheel the same if you are driving over rocks or if you are just like driving at like let's say 100 kilometers per hour on the road. So that is the kind of situation that you want. That's if you're going to put any sort of intelligence in the car, you want the car to be aware of those situations. So, and that's why convoluted neural networks, what they do is they use a pre-trained algorithm, and this is the one that they use as a base, but then they collect, like from time to time, information from the user, and then they retrain themselves according to that user. So that means that like after some time, like the original algorithm, if you and I are driving the same car, will split into two algorithms. One with my parameters, okay, the ones that have been learned from me, and then the ones from the time you were driving. Okay, so so summarizing,
Yeah.
design simulations and convoluted neural networks to kind of like interface with the steering wheel. Those are the things that you can expect from my group.
Perfect. And I mean, in the end, by the way, it's always fascinating to talk to you. It's, uh, do you hear that very often? Because it is
No,
totally.
I do it for a living. I need to keep a lot of students entertained, and that is difficult. So that's why like you need to read a lot and like just like get to I know a lot about like very dispersed things and like but I really appreciate the comment.
No, 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 seriously, seriously, because I
And
mean,
also,
connect.
learning about problems that are not solved or that could be improved and being like something as obvious as a steering wheel, I think I find that also like very interesting and highly motivating because, it's something that will be actually making a worldwide change.
Yeah.
So you make any sort of improvement on a steering wheel, and then you just like think that because they are round, they are just perfect, and that's so not true. So
If you think of it, the impact, I mean, the amount of hours of human interaction that this innovation could have would
yeah,
be, I mean, would be
no,
very, very,
it will be a game changer. I can tell. Yeah.
yeah. And it's fascinating because now you said it's a pretty imperfect design what we have right now, and I think this comes a little bit from the what we're observing a lot is the automotive industry came from a combustion engine centric kind of value chain. They were at the top. They were just calling the shots. They were this is how it's done, and everything flew around certain engineering kind of processes, and now this is the fascinating part where I think one of the obsessions that we have with automotive industry is because it needs disruption. It's a little bit like banking with fintech, certain industries where you see that the level of inefficiencies right now or inadequation to the future is so big that when you find someone who's ready to adopt, and we found several, we think that it's really worth pushing because they really need this impact, and it can really be a game changer. So this is what makes it especially interesting in this case, and and your diversity of fields and connecting all of them actually is I would say is really interesting for industry applications. I'm sure that you love academia, but
Mhm.
this is it's very good. It's very good because there's a lot of people who are very micro specialist and they like to talk about their thing, and it's not so easy to find someone who likes to talk different areas and kind of interconnect them and make them more insightful. So it's good. It's good. Apologies, I just went on a rant. There on a side note. Um, So yeah, I think that in this case, clearly we could, I mean, the design, the simulations, and then offering a path. I think that in the end, what investors always want is kind of seeing what is the big picture. This is why we worked, or Uber got invested, because they were talking about the big picture, all this. So it's always important. And I think that the fact that we can connect many things, and especially we can connect through the convoluted neural networks, which is, we've been talking with other entities that are looking into similar things, but in the end, at the research level and at Purdue, you clearly will have the most cutting edge, and I think in the end, this is where the value lies enormously. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So, okay, so now I would like to. So the thing I have like some ideas about like designs that I think will be very cool. I mean, will be cool to explore, especially for an steering wheel. Like, meaning, like so, for example, I would like to start by something that is not just a circular rod,
yeah.
but something that will be actually adjusting to like the way I grip it. Okay, that will be like something to get started with. And
Yeah,
the other thing is the other thing I would like to do is like you know, like there are we need to make the thing look elegant.
Of course.
So there are and I already have an idea for this. Okay, so I'm just like what I will do is I will just probably since um, what can I do? So it's as I told you, since I'm teaching design, I think I'm just gonna make the schematic and probably ask my students to do it as a homework. So if you give me, if unless I find the time to do it myself, but I
Oh
think it
no,
will be.
absolutely. They learn. They learn. Everybody learns here. Everybody wins here.
So yeah, I was. So one more thing. This is just like for you to understand a little bit, like how, like, let's imagine that you decide to collaborate with my group in the future. So uh, American institutions, okay, and it happens. I would say that it's not only American institutions; it's now happening more and more with other universities too. They are very aware about the fact that we are terrible in making industrial decisions, meaning like especially in terms of like setting IP, okay? And actually, like Purdue does not allow me to have like these sort of conversations where we go in so much detail about what you want or what will I propose without having a mutual confidential agreement signed. Okay. But I'm totally over that because I mean I work in the academia. I'm not expecting to get rich from any of the patents that I submit, but it's just fine. I mean, like, of course that will be welcome, but it's not that something that I actively like pursue. So I was, yeah. So what I was gonna say is like at some point in the future, if you want to collaborate with my group, you will have to make a decision of uh, how do you want to participate. Like, for example, I can tell you, there is a company in California that is interested in getting our machine learning. So they are making wearable sensors. Okay, they are usually, I mean, wearable sensors for detecting like people that have like I mean, adults who have incontinence. So like meaning like those that are like, you know, that like pee without any control and stuff like that. So um, like we are developing like, so they have proprietary sensors that they will, and they don't want to sell the IP. Okay, and we are fine with their stuff. So what they provide us are the readout from those sensors, so we can prepare an algorithm for them. Okay, so as you can tell, that is very specific. Okay, if they already have their stuff, they only want us to do a certain job. Okay, and because they already produce all the stuff, they want to say like, okay, oh, my stuff is mine, and just because now you put like the cherry on top, it's not gonna become yours. Okay, so what they do is they do what is called a contract for hire. So
Right.
they are hiring us, and then they pay Purdue, and there is a fee for the IP. So with this fee, like Purdue is understanding that we will claim absolutely no IP from that. Okay. Otherwise, like the IP needs to be negotiated. It's not a big deal. Like it's basically it's just kind of an agreement in between two parts. Okay. So, but keep in mind that like let's imagine, for example, that like let's imagine that I make a design and then these people think like, oh, that would be cool, or like it's something to explore, and then they decide to give you not 4.5 million, but they give you like 200K, okay? And then like you want us to, I mean, to receive like part of that money, and then like say like, okay, I would like you to have one student dedicated for one semester, maybe 2 semesters, on the design of this steering wheel. So like the collaboration will be with me will be just like following that approach.
Yeah.
It's basically so you're not paying me at all. So you're just funding one student in my lab to work or design whatever you are interested in. Okay.
Yeah.
That's basically all the money goes there, and maybe like a minimum amount of money like will be going, for example, if you want the stuff 3D printed, like because you're the one that will be choosing the milestones. Okay, like
Yeah.
meaning at the end of this project, I want like 3 steering wheels with incorporated bendable sensors and a machine learning algorithm capable of knowing or distinguishing between different users. Okay. So let's imagine if those are your milestones, I will have to break down to like let's say money for the buying 3D printing ink, which is
Yeah.
not a big deal. But so I can tell you most of the money will be just to pay this for the student, just to pay for the like the funding of the person who's gonna be like doing the work. So that's again like this is like kind of like to set some light on top of the like how the collaboration works with the academia in the United States.
And the alternative, because actually long term what we would want is to and maybe we're on the wrong path in the sense in Asia it operates a little bit more flexibly and it's a little bit less rigorous and more flexible.
Mm-hmm.
People and especially a lot of professors try to spin off their own companies. So that's very typical in Asia. It's not that we want that. What we long term want, ideally, in some of the collaborations, it doesn't need to be like that. But in some of the collaborations, we want the institution or the expert to be involved, ideally, if we're capable of delivering investment of value and ideally always understand if that expert would be willing to be a member, be collaborating, take equity, take those options are always more interesting because obviously if the application we see an incremental value that is beyond and especially in this cutting edge area. You know what I mean? If we design something and then there's not an engineering team that can follow through that doesn't understand sufficiently, it's always important to keep the let's say the brains behind the idea involved. Is that an option that is here, or would always be in this kind of separated or more project-based agreement that you're interested in?
Yeah, so uh, yeah, that's a good point. So our system, so again, Purdue is an academic institution that is actually public. So they try to, first of all, so they are very interested in collaborating locally, totally fine. And again, so far we have a mutual confidential agreement. We have no problem whatsoever in like share different disclosure. I mean, like just to send like proprietary work, like that's not gonna. I mean, the doors will be open on that regard. But Purdue understands, and actually the laws of Indiana and the laws why like Purdue is getting money is that like their main job is to get the students graduating, meaning either like getting a degree or like or a PhD.
Okay.
So that's why they prefer those kind of projects because it is also cleaner to see where the money is going.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, it's
totally.
just Purdue understands like so when there is a project, Purdue understands two things immediately. One, I'm not getting any money, ergo, the money that they are paying me for teaching is not being wasted because I'm working for somebody else.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
The other one is that they are getting money for a student that will be contributing with their work to the university. So that's basically that's why these kind of like collaborations are made in such a way that is for the university a win-win situation. So.
No, 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 absolutely. I mean, absolutely. It's
So just keep in mind that even though there are different kind of projects, and there are like this one that like the one where you don't set any sort of where you claim to keep all the IP, the one where the IP is something that will be just like you will have to acknowledge whatever has been designed in at Purdue, and then like the IP will be split. Like there is always like those sort of situations, or the ones where like you actually buy an IP that is already being developed. This one will not be the case. You buy an idea that has been already been developed at Purdue, and then you explore it later. Or like even, oh yes, like for example, since we have a patent for the architected soft machines, so you might, for example, one of the things that you can claim whenever you do the project, or you sign any sort of agreement with us, will be to say like, okay, I want you to hold this patent until the end of our collaboration or our project. And then at that point, if I'm interested in the patent, you will license it to me. Okay.
yeah.
So that's a way for you to say like, okay, this is exploratory science. I understand. I think it has good capabilities. I do not want to buy a patent at this state if I don't know if it is going to be actually like making sense for me economically. But let's imagine that like that the idea is actually a blockbuster and I really want to get the most out of it. You will have to sell me the patent like whenever like
Yeah, yeah. A right of purchase. Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
else. Yeah.
And so in this case, Professor Ramses Martinez, we're really in a very initial stage.
Oh, I fully understand.
So
I totally. I'm just like giving you an overview about like how like basically how Purdue and again like you're gonna find like many different many. I would say that most most universities that are taking primarily public money will work the same in the United States. So, and I understand that at the beginning you just want to go a little exploratory, and if there is money, there will be soft money, like maybe for one student one semester, something like that. And I just want you to be a little aware about how that goes.
again, you're adding another layer of information to already. Can I do this quarterly with you? I think I need the because it's really informative. No, no, absolutely, absolutely. Here in Asia is a little bit, as I was mentioning, is a little bit more flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Probably by business practices of the US, it would be, non-compliant. Sometimes what happens here in Asia is a little bit different.
Right.
Sure. But it's good to align on that. And as we mentioned, we initially would just want to make sure that we're getting the investors hooked on this. We know they're excited now, so this is the idea. So how would you see a next step? And then my team is texting me on the side that they're saying, "Hey, I want to make this question. I want to make this technical question." So Ajit and Amir are a little bit. I also told them, look, this is more
Sure.
strategic. If needed, maybe we can send you an email or to your team and ask a couple questions about the materials, just if needed. But how do you envision and then the next steps if we, for example, wanted to have a meeting with some of our investors and to do these designs, what would be a timeline, or should I send you a proposal and
Oh, yeah. So usually the way the way it works, okay, and I mean, I can tell you, like, because I actually I work a little bit like you, like in terms of like whenever I want to promote like my work for the like for my I mean whenever I talk to other companies like they are actually so this conversation that I have with you guys is a little different because there is, let's say, there is nothing very clear in mind. I mean, let's say that we don't know the parameters of the steering wheel. Okay,
Yeah.
we know what we want, but it is very clear about like which ones are going to be the functionalities that will be embedded in the system. Other people, for example, just contact me because they are very interested in something that I have developed. Like, for example, we made smart textiles that can be that actually harvest energy from the environment, and then they actually are they have a coating that is actually bacterial resistant, which, by the way, is something that probably we could put on the steering wheel. But going back to this, so they want this textile to be applied for army applications. Okay, so those are the. I mean, they typically need to. So we will be sending a proposal together. The way it goes is like, okay, we are proposing design. So like this is gonna be applicable because of course the army will never tell us any sort of mission that they are currently doing or anything. Okay, they are open for you to tell them what you would like to do, and if it gets to resonate with their interest, then they will be happy to fund you. So that's typically the way it goes. I found that companies operate very much in that direction. So they really want to have a proposal of the things that your steering wheel will be able to do and the shape that it will have, and and kind of like, if possible, some numbers in terms of how lighter it will be, which is totally doable, and then also what will be the one of the things that, like, this steering wheel, if it is architected, one of the things it will be able to do is it will have um, a very large range of deformation. While like steering wheels that are currently in the car, they are actually not absorbing any sort of deformation, and that's why you need to have the airbag, like popping up before. Okay. The only problem with the airbag is that it is optimized for working when the person is wearing the belt. Okay, like so the safety belt. That means that the person is perfectly aligned with the steering wheel. If you are slightly offline, um, then the impact changes significantly, and then like basically it's kind of like, just imagine you're collapsing against something that is just a balloon. So if you don't go exactly at the center of the balloon, the efficiency of the airbag decreases like significantly, and then you receive an impact from the half of the steering wheel you are actually offset in that direction. Um, so I think like showing a steering wheel that can be formed over a large range, that whatever deformation is actually sustained by the steering wheel will not be sustained by the ribs of the person that is crashing against it.
Yeah.
So, so I think those are numbers that we could actually throw in the proposal, as well as like which ones are like the sensors that we will be including, and the kind of information they will be able to provide about who is driving actually. So, and then usually what happens is like, no matter how much you work on the first proposal that you submit to any company or the army, then what happens is that you receive a call like shortly after if the idea is interesting, and most of your ideas are just not interesting enough for them. So, but they are really interested probably in like one key aspect that they want you to like further develop. But that is the point. Without any sort of feedback from the companies, we will not be able to get them engaged. So,
Yes.
but I'm very sure, like, and the thing is, like, no company will tell you. They will tell you that they are interested in a steering wheel, but they will never tell you specifically what they are after. because that is they consider that proprietary information, and I totally understand that. Like again, the army will never tell me like, yes, it's because we have a mission in Afghanistan where the like the soldiers need to be walking for 3 days and they are running out of batteries. So if you have a solution for that, no, I need to come up with something that will be broad enough or like flexible enough or versatile enough that will just like provide them with the functionality they think they are gonna need or will need in the future.
Yeah.
So that will be, in my opinion, the preferred the preferred way of action. So basically, figure out like what is gonna be the design of the steering wheel and start like brainstorming about all the things that maybe we have said along the video. Which ones are gonna be the okay? Like, are we gonna be preserving safety? Like, how are you gonna do it? Is it gonna be because the stiffness is gonna be variable, or it's also gonna be because you're gonna be making the user more inclined to hold the steering wheel the way it is optimal, or maybe a combination of both. Or what if your steering wheel is actually because the stiffness can change, can you put like some motors inside so the stiffness changes with time? And then like after the car understands that you have been driving at 100 kilometers per hour or more for more than 1 hour, they understand that your arms are going to start feeling like tired, and ergo they deform in such a way like that your hands are actually resting on top of the steering wheel. So it is easier for you to hold the position more and then adapt if you happen to brake or like if you reduce the speed for whatever reason. So I think those are the kind of ideas where I'd recommend you to go as crazy as possible in terms of like this is future stuff. So it needs to look like stuff from the future.
And,
So
and that's the area of interest. So I think this is, and what the cases you're mentioning are normally companies that come, and it's normally the, let's say, not so much the innovation team, but more the engineering team. They come with a problem they need to solve. In this case, the beauty of this, and I think it's especially attractive, is because they're coming with a very broad problem. And as you said, with us also, it's really hard to get the right nuggets of the information. Sometimes they don't even know what they want. Sometimes they know, but they can't share. But the beauty of it is that now they're really saying, like, come with as crazy and as impactful idea as you can. And then we need to make sure that it's not impossible to execute. So for example, one of the things that we've been viewing a lot is a lot of soft robotics are based on types of materials that are very difficult to then scale into industrial grade materials. So this is a basic thing that, okay, if it's beautiful and it's revolutionary, but it's never going to be applied, let's not go that way, because this is actually something that needs to go into a car, as revolutionary as it is. So I mean that's the beauty. That's the beauty of this case. I think we can go quite far out. We can go quite far out. Yeah.
There is only one more thing I would like to add. So, for all my conversations with different industries here, at least in the United States, well, the United States, and I think it happens in China too, is like the way companies are evolved is very Darwinian, meaning that it's just like the survival of the fittest. That's why whenever I talk to them, they have a very strong fear of missing out. Okay,
So,
like that means that like they they know what they can do, and they are actually all the time paying constant attention to what other providers can actually fabricate or make. So in the moment that there is something that they know, like for example, in the moment that you say that you're gonna be doing something that will be bringing them know-how about something that they know other people are exploring, they become very interested in that. Okay, because they feel like, okay, oh, I know that like these people are, or like these competitors are going into this direction. I just don't have the knowledge or the skills. So if you are telling me that like by collaborating with you, I will gain like knowledge in that area, then I become much more interested. Like, for example, as I can tell you, like this company who was interested in developing wearables was quite aware that all the Fitbit and all these smartwatches are actually running machine learning algorithms to understand from the routines of the user. So, and they were just not going into that direction because they didn't have the experience.
Yeah.
So that's why, like in the moment that I just throw that into the proposal, they were actually discarding other things so I could put more emphasis in that area, which was the thing that they thought they were missing out.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, so long story short, you can never know enough about the competitors.
yeah.
Okay, so that means like just do a very active research about like which ones are the directions people are going, and yeah, don't make the mistake of feeling like you're the only one trying to pursue or to envision a better steering wheel. There will be other people trying new stuff like for sure all the time. So
Yes. Yeah, what we've realized, for example, is before we would do more projects, not exclusive, but kind of exclusive for some investors saying, okay, we will research this for you, we'll find investment, and then we can co-invest and find ways. And now what we're trying to be is more platform oriented, kind of saying like, if we're not going to do it with you, we're going to do it with someone else, which normally drives a lot of interest of saying, oh, wow, I love the proposal. And if I'm not going to do it, if I'm Audi and you're not going to do it with me, you're maybe going to do it with BMW because obviously they're
yeah,
same ideas can be sold. And this is what we've seen that is especially stimulating for their brain saying, oh my God, okay, no, wait, how can I? Especially the only challenge is that sometimes they're like, okay, how can I put as little money as I can to make
yeah.
sure that I'm still in the loop. And this is what we find that they're like, okay, I still want to be in the loop. How much does it cost me to be? How much does information or not missing out cost me? Okay, let's find a way to do this. Yeah. Fascinating what companies are. Yeah. And especially business managers are, this is a problem of also incentives.
Uh-huh.
Business managers are not incentivized on the upside, really. They're incentivized in many cases on, on surviving, on keeping their job, and then if the company finds an incredible technology that is going to revolutionize the whole company, they're maybe going to get a promotion, but they're not going to become, they're not going to retire at 40. So
And
that generates a bit of disalignment, and they focus a little bit too much on keeping all the information at hand because they feel information is power for their careers, while developing the next steering wheel that will change everything. It's a nice thing, but it's failed before. The competitors are doing it. They don't know exactly what the outcome is. So that's why we're trying to be quite good at phasing the stages, building gates, and telling them, look, if this works, that should work, and that's the next stage, and that's the next stage, and fields of investment, so they feel more secure. But well, yeah. So what should I do? Should I send you an email with a proposal of timings and maybe potential steps, and then you tell me back? You say, no, this is when I can do it, or this is what we could do, and this is maybe the funding I would need now, or maybe later I would need X amount of money. How would you want to move it
that
to?
sounds good to me. Like, yeah, so elaborating a template will be actually best.
Yeah,
And then like we can go with that template back and forth
yeah,
and until we are both happy with the content. So
perfect,
yeah, I think
perfect.
that is definitely the best way to do it. So also again, I still keep in mind to just like send you like this, I don't know, like some sort of like prototype or something. So there is at least something in your hands that you can
Yeah.
like tell people how things will be looking like.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
great. And I don't want so Professor Martinez. By the way, Professor Martinez, where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Madrid, Spain.
I'm from Barcelona, Spain. Yo soy de Barcelona. Yeah, I just realized because I was looking at the FlexiLab webpage and I saw a lot of Spanish students, and I'm like, oh, that's
Oh yeah,
you,
yeah, yeah. So right now we have a collaboration with the Universidad Politécnica and what else? And the Carlos III.
yeah.
So
Okay.
uh, I got a student from UB University of Barcelona, like, and it was like maybe I would say 2 years ago, or 2 years and a half ago. So yeah,
Uh,
when I go to Spain, I always get the opportunity to just like get to convince students that come into Purdue for a short period of time or a short scientific stay abroad will be a good idea. They're very adaptable and yeah, and also I like to keep the group diverse. So I have students from like all over the places.
Yeah, yeah, I could see from over the place, but then I was going down and I saw,
Yeah.
Aniket,
People
and then
from
suddenly,
India, Bangladesh, Brazil. Yeah,
yeah,
there is great variety over there.
yeah.
Iran. Yeah.
At the bottom, you have the three Spaniards. You have three Spaniards right
Yeah.
at the bottom, and then like, wait, these are three
Yeah.
Spaniards, and then
Oh,
suddenly it's
oh, yeah. I recently there was even a professor from China who recently joined my group just for 1 year because China is now giving these fellowships that allow one professor to visit an foreign university and to work with under the group of another research group. So this professor joined me, and I have to say that like my only constraint with the students is like Chinese students don't get to apply to my group because they prefer to have Chinese professors. That's something
Yeah.
I wish I was able to change, but
it could
anyway,
be a language factor, but yeah,
probably.
there's an uncomfort, and if it happens a lot, it's that feeling that they will fail a little bit because they won't understand you. They will come back, and the grades will not be as good, and
I see. It's
there's
curious because it doesn't happen with other nationalities. So, and I would really like to have like more students from China, but it's just like they don't knock my door. So
it's a big part of the world. It's a big part of the world. Yes,
it,
yes. And a very interesting, very interesting part of the world. Yeah, yeah, I'm studying a bit of Chinese now, and it's crazy this language. But well,
yeah,
I just don't. I didn't want they're gonna kill me, the Ajit and Amir.
yeah.
If you don't mind, briefly, and if not, Ajit and Amir, we can send an email asking any of the questions. I just wanted to get the
No,
more
I would be
specific
happy
stuff.
to take questions, but I don't have. I mean, at 11, I need to be somewhere. So
Mhm.
that means like I have like no more than 15 more minutes, I would
Yeah,
say.
yes.
Okay.
Ajit, Amir, can you
Okay, so you have 15 more minutes. Maybe let me ask a brief question. You mentioned that you have simulation softwares, 3D printers, and materials. So my question is, do we have a material for particularly for the steering wheel application that can be used for the functional prototype or functional end use steering wheel can be used in the car. So do we have the material?
That's a good question. And yeah, so okay, we do have materials to make prototypes, and we have the capability to extend or make scalable like the behavior of how the steering wheel will change when we change the material. Okay, because actually that's the beauty of the design of architected structures. The fact that the properties rely more on the architecture than the material itself. So they are very easy to scale or to predict what is going to happen when you use a different material to make them. So, in my opinion, if you want to make something for a car, I think for an scalable manufacturing point of view, uh, extrusion meaning like like for example how like steering wheels are produced now, or like how like tires are made. Extrusion is gonna become a much more important factor. So also the other thing is we are thinking now about like how the design, for example, if I prepare a design, the design will be only about the skeleton of the steering wheel. You still want your steering wheel probably to feel like it is round. Okay, so you might not be interested in perceiving any sort of architecture on the outside of the steering wheel. You might want to keep all the stuff inside as a smartphone, as something that will deform. Again, there are many layers in which, like iPhone
Okay.
does that like beautifully. There are many layers where you perceive comfort or like easiness on using the software, just by hiding the complexity. So one of the approaches could be just taking the, the skeleton of the steering wheel, highly engineering that part, and then covering it with leather and making it look like really fancy, but still functional, and be able to make things that other steering wheels will be conceivable to, that they will develop that particular functionality.
And another connecting question with this, like, okay, we can design optimized steering wheel with maybe embedded soft electronics, as we already discussed in very much detail. Then what about the durability of that material? Can we compare the life of that optimized steering wheel with the steering wheel we are currently using?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, in my opinion, especially if you go to the automotive industry, they are really, they are going to be very happy to kind of externalize the research and development. Okay, so um, I don't think they are. So while you've been able to show off that like your material can resist a certain level of fatigue, they will be just taking over later and then using their own proprietary mixtures of ABS plastic with other stuff, and then getting way much better results than you will get with your materials in terms of fatigue. But so that's why I will not be very concerned, but about the fatigue at this state. I will care more about the functionality. The other thing is, if you do ask about the fatigue, I think it will be, in my opinion, good enough to work for, I don't know, like let's say months. Okay, definitely 1 year without any problem, I would say. But if you're talking about like, the first car of my dad who lasted 20 years, I'm totally unsure, and I can not like claim any sort of like long-term like a fatigue response. So.
Okay, thank you. Ajit, do you have any question? Thank you very much, because we have a very short time. So,
Seriously, no, I appreciate it actually.
Actually,
But
hello. Yes,
no, no,
Professor Ramses.
yes.
Most of the question actually we wanted to ask you, you have answered us. Like in first you wanted to have something which can have customized gripping actually. So all the stuffs are presently very much just a idea which is coming out, and it needs a lot of investment and lot of investigation actually. So I don't want to talk anything about technical. Already you have less time, so we can we can propose a design, then we can hello.
Yes, I can hear you
yeah,
perfectly well.
We can hear you. We can hear you, Ajit.
Yeah, then we can move ahead. How we go about this?
Okay. So basically, you're saying that as we've already discussed a step forward, we will evolve in that.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes.
That sounds good.
okay. So you don't have any question, Ajit?
No,
Okay. Let me ask another one. Right now, I saw your very good paper in I think in some kind of science, advanced functional materials. That's very good journal.
Which one?
You use this is 3D architectured soft machines with topological encoded motion. So in this paper, you are using a Voronoi-based structures. So you mentioned that these are auxetic structure, but I think in this structure, the main thing is the soft material. You're making the negative Poisson ratio or the property of auxetic structure using material, not using the structure, right? So my question is,
No,
if
the material that we use is incompressible.
it's not soft, because one picture
It's
is
yes,
very long.
but many elastomers are soft but incompressible. Like
Uh-huh.
meaning, sorry, incompressible means that like it will not change in volume if you press it isotropically in all directions. Okay,
Okay,
so it's
okay.
not like, for example, cork is not is compressible. Actually, like it reduces volume when you compress it, and it reduces volume funny. Okay, actually with a negative Poisson ratio. Okay, so like meaning that if you press it, it doesn't barrel, it actually shrinks, which is making it, so that's why it is easy to push them back into the bottle. So our stuff is soft and it does not have, and it will barrel if you compress it. So it is the architecture is what is giving the mechanical properties, and that's again the beauty of it is the fact that like now with only one single material that you put in your 3D printer, you are capable of architect something that will have distribution of elasticities according to your needs. Okay, and your needs might be making a steering wheel or a robot that articulates in some parts, like elbows or like whatever layout of the robot you want.
So, what kind of metamaterial structure do you think is more suitable for steering application?
Yeah, so that is yes, that is a very interesting question because the question is wrong. So you should always think in the reverse, meaning like what is the functionality you want, okay,
Yeah.
and how you want your steering wheel to deform where, okay, and then you're gonna find that some part of your steering wheel maybe you want them to actually squeeze nicely, okay, and then you can say okay, auxiliary over there, because when you want to think like you don't want your steering wheel to squeeze and actually sew up in between the fingers of the user. You want it to shrink and actually like be anoxeric, being reduced in volume. So, but there are some other parts, for example, where you might be interested in getting some rotation. In that case, a different structure or cellular structure will be taken into place. So there is no a single material or a single structure that will do everything you want in your or that will apply the whole functionality you're interested in putting in your steering wheel.
So it depends on the functionality and the kind of stresses like twisting, compression.
The design, because you are also not holding the steering wheel. I mean, you put all the weight on this part, like more than at the bottom. So I think at the bottom you have like the capability for, I mean, the mechanical properties do not need to be exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yes. Even I think Professor Ramses told about multi-layer material. So even that we have to use it to get the function.
Yeah, that's very true. So one of the things that you will find in for example, in that advanced functional materials is that the robots that we made and the robotic structures that are shown over there are hollow, like they are only architected on the surface. So right now, what we did was making a system that is actually it's an algorithm that is filling the volume with a fractal structure. So the fractal structure repeats more if you want more stiffness and less if you require less. So it is an interesting idea because it's just because now because that will be giving you like full hardness over the steering wheel rather than only having the outer the outer cover, let's say.
Professor Ramses, one quick question I
Yes.
have. You talked about fractal offsetting metamaterials. How it is different from offsetting metamaterials?
Oh, I'm sorry, like that cut a little bit. Can you repeat it?
Uh, you talked about fractal offsetting metamaterials. How is it
Yes.
different from offsetting metamaterials?
Oh, yes. If so they have still the. However, if you make so the idea, let's imagine that you make a unit cell, okay, and your unit cell is oxidate, okay. You squeeze it, it has the behavior you want, okay. Now let's imagine that you want this one to have different properties. Okay, like you want it to be like stiffer. Then
Okay.
what we do is we take this cell and we fractally repeat it over the structure so it still maintains the mechanical properties, but because now the whole volume is filled with fractals, it's way stiffer now. So this is allowing you to just simply put in an algorithm, okay, this is the distribution of elasticities that I want, and this is the distribution of the mechanical strength that I want. and then it will be just like repeating your structure, like with the proper level of fractals all over the volume. So it's long story short is another level of control in terms of like you're not only controlling the elasticity, you're controlling the stiffness.
So are you embedding this inside a unit-led structure?
What do you mean? Oh, like math invented it before. So like there are many unit cells that have like this like mechanical properties. Okay, so those are mathematical unit cells. So that are like there are like some of them that work in 2D, many in 3D. So yeah, so when I use one, I don't want to say that I invented it. Okay, I just selected it out of all the ones that like the mathematical world of topology will provide. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah.
Gentlemen, if we are all set, I'm actually I
Yeah,
to
sure.
run to
Please,
the next meeting.
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your
And
time.
again,
No need for pleasantries. We're so thankful. We'll send you an email.
perfect. That sounds great. So it was great to talk to you. So have a good night, those of you who are in
Thank you.
Taipei.
Okay, so good morning for you and good night for us.
Have a good day, and hopefully the teaching will be all right. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
gentlemen,
Okay,
Bye-bye.
pleasure
bye-bye.
talking to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Take
bye.
care.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.